something cheap and superficial.
Smokey and the Bandit is a 1977 action comedy film directed by stuntman turned filmmaker Hal Needham and starring the golden boy of the redneck romance era, Burt Reynolds, along with Sally Fields, comedy star Jackie Gleason, and actor, singer, and all-round good old boy Jerry Reed. Second only to the mighty Star Wars as the box office champ of 1977, it connected with the then adjacent zeitgeist of muscle cars, trucking, bootlegging, CB radios, and of course, a total lack of respect for the law. It's really easy to forget in this age of electric cars and carefully focus grouped entertainment consumed on mobile devices what a cultural force this film was. Whilst 1977's space-bound behemoth would influence the next generation of cinema, the Bandit and his whooping and hollering friends and pursuers would influence the smaller screen for my generation of kids who were looking for a new brand of wheel-spinning, gorge-jumping, law-breaking, wisecracking heroes. I'm Mike from Stroker vs. Punter and the Rewatch Project, and on this episode of Rolling Thunder, we will look at a movie that would have an indelible influence on the action TV of the 1980s that I will be covering on future editions of the show. As I mentioned last time, growing up in the 80s, particularly in the early part of the decade in Birmingham, England, could be a dreary experience. Before the onset of the blockbuster age with Star Wars, the entertainment landscape was a dystopian one. Science fiction offered us the cannibalism of Soylent Green and the disco-infused euthanasia of Logan's Run. Even action TV shows like the then popular Rockford Files and Starsky and Hutch which featured charismatic leads and amazing cars, were influenced by hard-boiled crime movies and the urban anti-heroes of the French Connection, respectively. But if we look at the classic run of action TV shows to come out of America and dominate the cultural landscape for the best part of the 1980s, it really was 1979's The Dukes of Hazzard that brought the lightness of touch and family-friendly incarnation of these tropes into the living room. And whilst this show was itself a repurposing of the 1975 film Moonrunners, Smokey and the Bandit was the film that pushed these themes into the public consciousness internationally and created the appetite for more content of this nature. This would eventually lead to Hazzard County, which itself would then lead us to The A-Team, Knight Rider, Airwolf, and countless other shows shepherded by the likes of Stephen J. Cannell, Don Belisario, Glenn Larson, and their contemporaries that I will be looking at in the upcoming podcasts. Already a star when he made Smokey and the Bandit, Burt Reynolds' easy charm and traditional masculinity were already synonymous with the cologne-wearing, bar-fighting, cause-drinking, mustachioed machismo that was emblematic of the decade. Burt's appeal lay in the fact that he felt like he always knew something that we didn't. That no matter how dire the situation was, he would always, through cockiness alone, if needs be, come out on top. Look at this scene from 1978's Hooper that shows this appeal in full effect.
Well, if you wanted to make somebody look like an asshole, boy, you sure did. That was you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 6 against 12. Well, looks like it's a little uneven. You guys will have to go back to Houston and get some more guys. We may be in trouble. We are definitely in trouble.
Burt's charm was an easy fit for the character of the Bandit, who is charged to haul 400 cases of beer from Texarkana to Atlanta in 28 hours. Along with his pal Snowman, played by Jerry Reed, he's pursued across the highways, swamps, and dirt roads of America in his iconic black Pontiac Trans Am by Sheriff Buford T. Justice, played with demented glee by Jackie Gleason, and his buffooning son, Junior.
There's no way that you could come from my loins. Soon as I get home, the first thing I'm gonna do is punch your mama in the mouth.
Along the way, he picks up Junior's runaway bride-to-be, Carrie, whom Bandit quickly bestows to use the CB terminology of the day, handle frog. Bandit's status as a renegade cult figure is solidified by the climax of the film as the chase and the bandit himself become almost mythical folk legends. With Needham being perceived as a stuntman with only second unit experience on the Burt Reynolds-led Longest Yard, it really was his friendship and trust from Reynolds that got the project over the line. Burt actually had so little faith in the script that large portions of the dialogue were improvised on set, which really has the benefit of adding to the movie's breeziness and sense of camaraderie. But Reynolds liked working with Needham. He trusted him and he followed his gut. Reynolds himself, a director, saw the talent and enthusiasm that Needham had and backed his play. Reynolds was also an athlete and enjoyed the company of men's men, and stuntmen were a group he always felt collegial with and comfortable around. And this would be celebrated in what I feel is the best of their collaborations, Hooper, from the following year. The film itself was beset with drastic budget cuts during its production and ended up with a budget of just $3.3 million. The comedy in Smokey and the Bandit often gets overlooked in favour of the vehicular mayhem, but it must be remembered that Smokey and the Bandit is a very, very funny film. Gleason is a powerhouse who looks like he's going to have a rage-induced heart attack at any moment. His bizarre insults make no sense. Possum's pecker, barrel of monkey nuts.
Do what I tell you, you barrel of monkey nuts! Nobody makes Sheriff Buford T. Justice look like a possum's pecker.
But all the sense at the same time. And his catch-all famed insult of some bitch.
You some bitch! Get out of there, you some bitch! Some bitch. Hi, Buford. Hello, you handsome some bitch. And I got a big welcome waiting for you when I get you back home. You some bitch.
Came directly from the muttered cursing Reynolds remembered hearing from his father as a child. Anecdotally, this was replaced with scumbum for the TV edit, and this new word became a popular catchphrase on the playground to an entire generation of kids who were only familiar with this version of the film. Burt and Jerry Reed have a natural chemistry, with the bandit the constant threat to Snowman's attempts at domesticity. That troublemaking buddy that Snowman has too much in the friendship bank with to say no to, despite his better judgment. Sally Fields is adorable and charismatic and keeps up with the All Boys Club easily, and the film would not work without her. And then there's the car. I went to a custom car show here in Wellington, New Zealand, a few years ago, and it was minutes before I saw my first Bandit Trans Am. They are that ubiquitous. The original film had 4 of the hot-off-the-press 1977 models. They were actually, I believe, redressed 76 models, and all 4 were essentially destroyed. One was immediately decimated, doing this incredible jump. This was achieved with a rocket booster, which would become a plot device in a red Trans Am this time in the next Needham and Reynolds collaboration, Hooper, from 1978. Now, I need to preface that whilst I will spend a lot of time on this series of videos talking about the awesome cars and vehicles in these shows and movies, I know next to nothing about cars. I'm the vehicular equivalent of people you overhear in art galleries saying, I don't know much about art, but I know I like that. But for my money, this is the coolest of the cars in the 3 Bandit films. The gold trim, the rectangular headlights, and the gold Firebird icon are iconic, and the stubby little bastard looks great doing wheel spins on country roads and state highways. Firebirds and Trans Ams as symbols of virility in American culture was definitely a thing back then, and the Bandit certainly contributed to this perception. Even now, if you want to show that a young person is super cocky in your 70s or 80s set movie, only one car will do. The 1980 model used in the sequel apparently performed like shit, and the 1982 special edition, again with gold trim in part 3, was akin to the one used in Knight Rider. So it's always been hard to separate the two in my mind, and it always feels a little too modern looking for my tastes. The film would spawn 2 sequels, which I hope to take a look at someday on this very show. Smokey the Bandit 2, again directed by Needham, and the largely Reynolds-less Part 3, directed by Dick Lowry, a director so in tune with the homespun charms of these films that he preceded his work on Bandit 3 with a Hank Williams biopic and followed it up with a Rogers film. Neither of these sequels, of course, reclaimed the lightning in the bottle of Part 1, although I do really like Part 2 and find myself mounting spirited defences of that thing more than I probably should. There was also a series of made-for-TV films in the mid-90s, directed by Needham and starring former child star Brian Bloom. Now, I've got really fond memories of this film growing up. I associate it with the rise of videocassettes as it first aired on TV in England in the early 80s, and was one of the first films that I remember recording and watching essentially on a loop. The sequel was also on TV a lot, albeit in a weird re-edited form called Smokey and the Bandit Ride Again, with lots of scenes removed for timing and content as well. And I also remember it feeling like a transgressive film in many ways. The character's outlawed status, the general anarchic irreverence, and the PG level swearing always received disapproving glares from my mother and kind of complicit winks from my dad that made us feel like we were watching something not altogether reputable, but cool. I also remember watching a lot of the other Burt Reynolds films like White Lightning and Gator, but they never really worked for me as well as Bandit. They were very much products of 1970s exploitation cinema. And whilst they had a lot of the humor and action and charisma of the Bandit films, they were grittier and meaner films. People got killed in these films and had sex. And at 7 years old, I didn't know what to do with either of those things. The legacy of Smokey and the Bandit is clear, both in the short and long term. When a 7-year-old boy living in the Midlands of England has bought a copy of the CB slang dictionary and is learning what a Kojak with a Kodak is, your film has probably gained maximum pop culture ubiquity. But where does this leave us as fans of 80s action TV shows? Well, it leaves us with precedent. It leaves us an understanding that families will sit together and watch characters who survive on quick wits and fast cars with their charisma, sense of adventure, and sometimes, when needs be, disregard for authority. This blending of action, light-hearted comedy, and simple Western-infused morality would be a key ingredient in the television that would define Generation X viewers. The next ingredient was another form of machismo that was bubbling up in the culture, that of the muscle-bound Vietnam vet. Next time, we will take a look at the pilot episode of Stephen J. Cannell's The A-Team and examine that other crucial element of action television in the 1980s. Feedback is always welcome via rollingthundervideoshow@gmail.com or the comment section below. Please also like and subscribe and check out my other shows, Chinstroker vs. Punter, a fortnightly general film and TV podcast, and the Rewatch Project with Hannah and Mike, where my wife and I rewatch some of our favorite entertainment franchises. See you soon.
Let's do something cheap and superficial. Let's do something that